Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hosting this hearing, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. You know, when it comes to China, there's a lot of bipartisan support for holding the Chinese Communist Party accountable and tackling their sinister advancement into other nations around the globe. So as this committee discusses ways in which we can compete with the CCP, being competitive in our own tax code is one way to ensure the United States is positioned as a global leader and pushes back on our adversaries. This is especially true when it comes to research and development. According to the R&D Coalition, the U.S. share of global R&D investments in 2019 was 30%, down from 33% in 2009 and 40% in 1999. Unlike the United States, China's global share of R&D investment has gone up. It was 24% in 2019, a big jump from 5% in 2000 and 15% in 2009. That means China's R&D investments have increased by 400% in just 2 decades. And what did they do to incentivize R&D? China's implemented a deduction of up to 200% on eligible R&D investments. And without actions to undo the U.S. research and development amortization tax provision that kicked in last year, China go from having 2.5 times more favorable tax benefits for research and development to as high as 20 times more favorable than the United States. Research and development is critical for our competitive, yet without the right incentives, the United States is ceding research and development and in turn jobs to the Chinese Communist Party. But today on tax day, my colleagues and I are introducing much needed legislation to fix the R&D tax code that when passed will provide greater economic opportunities and reduce our dependence on foreign adversaries. The American Innovation and R&D Competitiveness Act allows for immediate expensing of eligible R&D costs, bringing us back to where we were just 2 years ago, and securing our dominance in research and development. Legislation is a bipartisan solution that I've introduced by my Ways and Means colleague, Congressman John Larson of Connecticut, as well as several Republicans and Democrat colleagues on the Trade Subcommittee today. Mr. Duesterberg, do you agree that having China continue advanced research and development while the United States slows R&D harms our economy and American workers? And is there a correlation between where R&D occurs and where jobs and manufacturing follows?
Congressman, I do agree with the sentiment, and I agree with the need for your bill. I agree that R&D does produce results in terms of manufacturing and jobs especially, but I would just caution people to not overestimate the efficiency of Chinese research and development and their scientific research. I think we're much better at that than they are. I would also note that it would be useful, I think, to continue the trend towards more support for basic research and development. Most Chinese research is in the area of development. We are still world leaders, and the benefits that we received for instance, in the 1950s and the 1960s, when we were buying far and away the world leader in basic research, paid rich dividends in terms of manufacturing things like semiconductors, aerospace technology for many years to come. So I would also emphasize, in addition to the R&D tax credit, the need to continue robust support for basic research in the United States.
And yeah, there's always that trade-off between basic research and applied research and application. So, in addition to talking about research and development, we know China has been stealing American innovation and technology, and now the Biden administration is working to give away our vaccine innovation through the WTO TRIPS waivers. Mr. Greer, you mentioned earlier talking about our intellectual property. What are some more concerns, or do you have anything else to add to, and particularly your assessment of the Biden administration's stance on waivers and support for U.S. intellectual property?
Certainly, Congressman. With respect to intellectual property generally, you'll recall that intellectual property was actually at the heart of the Section 301 investigation that gave rise to the current tariff regime on China. So that was something where everyone agreed that this was a problem and we should deal with it. With respect to now with the proposed waiver, which I mentioned before, we have existing tools to deal with pandemic-style needs, and moreover, I think rich countries, the quickest, if we have an issue with vaccination, the quickest ways for rich countries to donate and get the vaccine to the countries, right? Thinking that we can parachute IP for free into a less developed country and a vaccine facility is going to spring up there, I mean, that just doesn't make a lot of economic sense. So I think we need to think of other tools to help these countries.
Thank you, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.